Hey, you guys. All right, so today we are going to be talking about different kinds of plot structures. So there's a whole lot of stuff involved in plotting stories. So today we're going to get started talking about some of that stuff. So I have posted several different things up on Patreon, and they are free to access for you guys. So you don't have to pay for access to that. Right. So this is going to make things a lot easier for you guys. You can just go to patreon.com/funky like feathers and everything is ready to download there. All right. Let's see. Check on everybody over here. And all right. All right, let's see. Go. All right. So, you know how you're supposed to like stay focused on writing projects? I try to stay focused on writing projects. I really do. And then today was Free Book Wednesday over at a local bookstore. So, and they ended up getting in a book that I was really excited about. So I ended up going over to buy the book and picking up Babel, however you want to pronounce it. I don't even know. I'm super, super excited about this book. But because it was Free Book Wednesday, I also picked up this little gem, Up to No Gouda. Because, I mean, why would you not? It's actually a grilled cheese mystery. I love these. I love the goofy little mystery books. So much fun. All right, so we got Bomber. How you doing? Miss your face. Miss your face too. So tonight we're going to be talking specifically about story structure, right? So like I said, I've got tons of free printables for you to download, print, whatever you want over on my Patreon. I've actually got two different postings on my Patreon recently that are public about plotting stories. And that is specifically because I did go ahead and come on Sunday and talk about plotting stories. And so we kind of talked a little bit about generally what goes into a story and the plot embryo and everything like that. So if you don't know what the plot embryo is, Rachel Stevens actually, she talks about the plot embryo on her YouTube channel. And if you want to make sure it's the right one, Rachel Stevens, she used to have green hair and bangs and wavy hair. So she talks about the plot embryo a lot. And so these are some things that kind of came out of that. Now, then also on the most recent post that I've got there, plotting more stories, because I couldn't think of anything better to put there for that. It's got a ton of extra things that you can download and everything. So we're going to be talking about some of those that specifically talk about everything that goes into a story, right? Although one of them is kind of a joke. So don't take it as like a serious thing when you see it, but it is Plotting Made Simple is the name of that one. Hey, Ravina. So that one this is the flow chart of how plotting is made simple. There's a lot of arrows on it. So I thought it was funny. It's on there in case you want a little bit of a giggle when you go looking at your writing resources, but do not take it seriously as how to plot a story, right? So some of the other things on this that are just for fun is the story coaster, because you guys, when you're writing so much, you have to have a sense of humor. Okay, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like you have to be willing to not take yourself so seriously. So when it comes to writing, there's also the story coaster, and on here are a bunch of little places where you can get stuck, right? I mean, why not? So again, available over on Patreon, totally free. Don't have to pay me anything. You're good. So we're going to be talking about several different ways to plot a story, and then we're going to take some time to kind of work on plotting our stories, because you guys, that's why we're here, right? It is Preptober. Officially, we're fully entrenched in it. We are almost halfway through Preptober, which means theoretically that you should be about halfway through plotting and planning out your story. I'm just going to go out on a limb here, metaphorical limb, okay, that we are not there. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just going to kind of put that out there. It's okay. I totally get it. If you have not officially planned your story, or if you're not even halfway there, I feel you. It's fine. It's okay. We're going to work on getting there, okay? So some of the things that we are going to, thank you, I know. Yes. Okay. So Bomber's hiding. Rubina just thinks I'm funny. So we are going to break it down to its simplest terms. The parts of the story. Okay. Now, even when I talk to children about this, there are 3 parts to a story, and you all know what they are. Every single story has these 3 parts. Ready? It's very, very scientific. Okay. We have the beginning, the middle, and the end. Okay. Those are the 3 basic parts of a story. Ta-da! I bet you knew that. Okay, there is one key thing that happens between the middle and the end, where there's a buildup of excitement and awesomeness that builds and builds and builds until finally the reader just goes, "Oh my God, I need to know what happens." And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of the audience, is what we call the climax. Okay. Now, if you are a teenage boy and cannot handle this conversation, don't worry, I'm right there with you, because we're going to talk about climaxes a lot tonight. Just go with it. Okay. So when we're dealing with the climax, that is like the whole point of the story. So everything that you have written beforehand is specifically for that climax to make sense and to be enjoyable and to make your reader want to get to that point, right? So if you're building up a story and it's really not building nicely and you just haven't quite made it worth your reader's time, they're not going to make it to the climax, okay? They're going to give up, right? They're going to make it into what we call the muddy middle. And when you get to the muddy middle of a story, this is the tough time, okay? This is where it can be very difficult to get your story to continue rolling forward and to allow your reader to want to continue reading. But there's little details that you have to add along the way to make them keep wanting to go, right? Like every scene has to have a purpose and has to lead to the next one. And it has to keep your reader intrigued to the point where they want to go on to the next scene, right? That's why we call it the muddy middle, because oftentimes we get so wrapped up in the backstory and stuff that we just wanted to write that was a lot of fun, or something that we wrote that was pretty and we just felt like it needed to be included. And if it doesn't matter to the story, it doesn't matter to the reader. That's the problem. All right, if it doesn't affect your character, it doesn't need to stay in the story. So my friend Maria, she has taught me that sometimes you have to write a scene just for yourself. And then when it comes time to editing and everything, that's when we actually take that scene out. And we may move it to a different manuscript. We may move it just to a random document, but whatever it is, if it's not needed for the book, it's not needed for the book. And it's very, very difficult to grasp and accept that, right? As an editor, that's sometimes what I have to do, is just say this, it's just not imperative. It just does not change our character. And it doesn't affect them, then it doesn't affect us, right? So when we are breaking down the story, one of the things that we have here is a classic story arc, right? So it's the arc plot structure. It is kind of what we consider the roller coaster. This is the basics when it comes to a story, okay? And you'll see, and it's on the printables that you can get. So we start here at the base, and we're just going to kind of, first we got to introduce what the story is. Then we're going to put our character through some stuff, right? Then we go ahead and hit this climax up here and go, "Oh my God, it's amazing. Well, that was a totally awesome story." And then we have to tie up some loose ends and allow everybody to kind of relax again, okay, before you go and pick up another story. Now, how does this plot structure differ from a series plot structure, right? I mean, like, because sometimes you're writing an entire series, you're not just writing one story. So how does this structure differ if you actually have a series that's coming out? So these are some of the things to plan beforehand. Okay, if you have a series that you're functioning with, then that means that you're not just going to, like, over the entire, let's say a trilogy, okay? Because most people are comfortable with trilogies. It's a very comfortable length for a series. If you have books like these or anything written by Sarah J. Maas, just don't worry about that, because that is a very long series and they all intertwine. And the amount of planning that went into that is insane. Okay, but if you have a trilogy, we're not just going to go up to a massive climax like in book 3 and then tie up ends, right? You're actually going to have to, like, make a climax in each book, and each one has to be better than the one before it. Now, this often becomes where the entire second book becomes that muddy middle, right? Do you know of a trilogy where that second book was just so hard to get through, right? I think we've all read trilogies where that second book is pretty much a just ginormous muddy middle. And it was difficult then to jump into book 3, right? So that's what we want to avoid. We want to make sure that every single part of your story, of however long that may be, has a purpose and leads your reader into the next one, right? So this is part of the planning process, because you also want the title of your books, the, theme title of your series, whatever, you want everything to kind of build on itself. So you actually need to kind of set up that breadcrumb trail that allows your reader to go, oh my God, it was there the whole time. That's what we want them to see, right? We want that holy cow moment where everything comes to light, right? So, okay. All right. So Bomber says Tower of Dawn. And Rubina says Godfather 2. Okay, see, that's the thing. Like, seriously, they are rough, right? Like, Tower of Dawn is literally this book right here by Sarah J. Maas. That's one where we had the side story with kale, and I don't mean the vegetable. But yeah, I mean, like, the whole thing, and then people are talking about tandem reading, so that you read the 2 books at the same time, because there's a book that happens at the same time period as Tower of Dawn. People are talking about reading them at the same time. They're both this big. Like, nobody wants to carry those around at the same time, right? So Bummer said it took her a year to read it. I don't blame you, right? And that's part of the frustration, is you got stuck in that muddy middle. Now, even though Kale's side story, yes, it's important, and yes, we learn things. Why not break that and just like mesh the 2 timelines, because they happen at the same time, and just allow the story to be broken up into 2 books? Because, like I said, these books are honkers. So yes, it can be very, very difficult to make it past that hump, to like make it to the climax, right? So, like I said, try to keep your minds out of the gutter, y'all. All right, so one of the other references that I listed there was the 3-act story. Okay, so when you go to the Patreon page and you pull out this thing, it's called the 3-act story. And this is kind of where we actually get it broken down. There are 3 different pages to this document. Okay, each page is a different act, right? So we've got act 1, act 2, act 3. And this is the simple beginning, middle, and end of a story. Okay, but this particular resource breaks down your timeline by percentages. So you actually get to see what percentage of the story you're at, and kind of what should be happening at that point. Now, this may not be what you use as you're writing the story, but this is a really good reference if you are going back and checking to see what was included in your story, and make sure that you are accomplishing that task at about that time frame, right? So this is where we have the hook happens at the 1% mark, and then the setup is 1 to 12%. So that setup is kind of what you tell us is the, set up the normal for your character. We want to know what their normal life is like. So before you go throwing insanity at them, before you go putting them through all of these trials and tribulations and all the obstacles in their way to accomplish a task, we need to know what their normal day is like. We need to see, because that allows us to know just how much their life changes by the end of the book. We have to see where they started. We can't appreciate how far they've gone or how they've changed if we didn't know where they were at the beginning. Right? So having that setup is imperative. Now, there are different setups that will give you a different view of your story so that you can see it differently. And we'll get to that too. So the first act timeline, like seriously, I put these in just a journal thing. I got this. It is an Exceed notebook. It is bendy. It has a little thing that holds it closed. Now I just lost my spot. It's cool. So in this one, don't worry, I'll find it. It's right there. Okay. So the first act timeline, see, it gives you some key points to be at for each section. And then second, and then third. Okay. So it breaks apart the story with those percentages. So you can kind of see where you should be. And also the wording is different. And this is why I know it can seem like I inundate people with information, because to me, the more you have access to, the better. There is I would rather have too much information than not enough when it comes to how to accomplish a task. Okay. So, and again, some of these resources are just set up differently. So whatever clicks with your head is the best one to utilize. Okay. So again, this one uses percentage points to kind of take you through where you should be at the story. This is where we get told about first pinch point, a realization, a midpoint, action, second pinch point, things like that. Like the terminology is just slightly different, but if that's what makes it click in your head, then that's the one you need to go with. Okay. So again, that's why I do that. We also talk about the hero's journey. So this is similar to a plot embryo. It has a slightly different breakdown, again, for each of those points. There is like dog mania happening over here. In case you're wondering, I have 4 dogs. They come in all sizes. Okay. I have everything from like 120-pound Connie Corso over there, 35-pound Corgi mix, and then 2 little wire hair terriers that are running around under my desk. So if you hear some weird snuffling and my desk moving, that's my dog. Okay, so the hero's journey. I like this one just because it looks like a tree. That's really it. I put 2 different hero's journeys in there because one of them does not look like a tree, and then one of them does. All right. It's the same kind of breakdown, but we have like ordinary world versus chaotic world, which is kind of nice to see it broken down. You can see it's got Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So you can kind of see how we go through the journey for a hero. Right. Now, one of the big things that is similar to a plot embryo is that we have these 2 sections of the pie up here. Okay. So this is our opening scene, and then this is where we close out the story. One of the biggest things to be able to see these side by side when you fill it in is to make sure that your closing, your finishing image kind of mirrors your opening image. Okay, so the classic example is that if we have our character, in this really bad spot and they're sitting on the, sidewalk with, a cup asking for coins, we want at the end for them to be walking into that building that's right there because they're opening up their brand new business. So where they used to sit and like beg for change, now they are a creative entrepreneur who is starting a business and everything. It gives them this new reality that's still similar to their original starting point, right? That's kind of what we want to see. We want to see how they have changed over that time. So again, I really like how that one's broken down. And then we come down to the Save the Cat beat sheet, right? Now, for the Save the Cat beat sheet, there are 15 points to this. But it breaks down information nicely. So I like having that breakdown. It just, like I said, hits your brain different. You can actually find these online as well. Just, Save the Cat writes a novel. Y'all, seriously, like this is imperative. So they break it down differently into, and again, just different key points. The terminology is slightly different. So we have opening image setup. The theme is stated, which happens during the setup. But again, just to kind of verify the fact that you do need to set the theme and the tone. And then we get the catalyst, debate, and then Act 2, break into 2, the B story. So this one specifically brings in the fact that you need to have a subplot included. Now, this is where you can also end up seeing the shiny new character and allowing your subplot to become your primary plot. Do not let this happen. Okay, I've seen a lot of writers do it. And yes, it's very cool when we get a new character. However, your primary main character needs to stay your primary main character. It's very cool when they have a very cool friend. However, that friend needs to stay the best friend. Try not to let them trump the main plot of your story. Okay, so this is also kind of cool when we see the breakdown of the plot embryo and we get to showcase the, outer rim where everything's happening and then the inner rim where we have kind of that subplot going on. So here's the other hero's journey that I included online. See, it's a different setup. I mean, it's exactly like the tree one, but it looks different. So that's what we need to have. And it talks about inner journey and outer journey. So this is the plot embryo with the labels on it. So this showcases where everything happens. So we have the world of order, the world of chaos, Okay, we have ignorance over here in the first half of the story, and then we have enlightenment in the second half of the story. So that's why it's broken up here. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Here's your midpoint. And again, it just kind of runs through it and tells you what point you're supposed to be at in that plot embryo. Have I written this kind of stuff up? Yes, I have. And then I have the blank plot embryo in there for you guys too. So let me show you the difference there. This is the one without the labels so that you can actually section it out yourself and fill it in with everything you need for that plot to make sense. Okay. Again, it all depends on how your head works. I actually just moved a story. Where did I put it? So I can show you what a filled in plot embryo looks like. I think it's in the drawer right there. Let me grab that real quick and I will show you what a filled in plot embryo looks like. Don't be scared. Just a second. Yes, okay. Okay, so I have a few codexes here, but I think this is, yes, this is where I put this plot embryo. So this is a finished plot embryo that I utilized. Okay, so this is, and you can see just a little handwriting everywhere, and there were random little pieces of information I needed to make sure to include, and they weren't on there, so I just wrote them on Post-it notes and put them there. Okay, this was me filling in all of those points, and you can see in pen outside, I wrote what plot point I was at. Okay, so yes, it seems like a lot of information, but when you think that an entire story fit on one page, it's not as much information as you think. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind. You always, yeah, I get that. Oh wow. Again, don't feel intimidated. It's okay, because you can also take this information and put it outside of that plot embryo thing. And I'll show you what that looks like. Because the stuff that you include in each of those sections can also be put together on things like Post-it notes. Okay, so if your head works better segmenting information out, cool, no problem. Okay, so what I did here is that I actually went ahead and put things on Post-it notes. And before I had the bookcases that you see behind me, I actually went ahead and, I'm not even kidding, Post-its, all right? I took some washi tape and some Post-it notes of varying sizes and colors, and I put together the plot point. So this is the opening image. It tells me what season it's starting in, summer. It's in Act 1. These are the characters involved in that scene. And then this is a small bit of information to tell me what's supposed to be happening at that plot point. Okay. Then as I go through each of the plot points, I tell myself what the plot point is, what's happening, and who's there, so I can keep track of what characters are in each scene, right? Yes, colors. Okay, colors, you need colors. All right, so you can see by the time I break into 2 in Act 2, it is now fall time. Here are the characters involved, and here's another summary. Okay, because that way you can segment out the information. And again, trying to remember what is happening in each of these major points, right? Now, when it comes down to scenes versus the full story, that is a horse of a different color. Okay, now this coming weekend on Saturday, Maria Lopez from Write It with Writers, which is a group that I am associated with. There are 3 instructors with Write It with Writers. We do have a Facebook page, right? Write It with Writers. So Maria Lopez, Rachel Norris, and I are all instructors with Write It with Writers. This coming weekend on Saturday at 11 o'clock at a local bookstore called Buy the Book, Maria is actually going to be specifically talking about scene cards and developmental scene cards and how to break down the scenes themselves. So right now we're working on the primary overall plot. Okay, we're talking about the story as a whole. We're trying to make sure that we have the big ideas on the page, that we just kind of know what the story is going to be about. When you start breaking it down scene by scene, you're not going to have one scene for every plot point, because even if you use like the 15 beat sheet from Save the Cat, that would mean that every single person who ever uses the beat sheet would only have 15 chapters in their book, 15 scenes. That's it. So things to keep in mind when you break these down. And the way that I've kind of figured out what works really well is to take those major ideas that you want in your book and then to start breaking it down more and more and more. And then once you kind of break down that information, then you can write that scene based on that one thing that you're trying to accomplish. And then that way you're not trying to take on a whole lot all at one time, right? You just take on that piece. And with those scene cards, Maria will show you how to make sure that one, your scene matters, that it makes sense, that it flows from one to another, and also to kind of help make sure that everything flows properly. So sometimes you start writing things in a plot embryo and you're like, yeah, this is great. This totally makes sense. And then you start writing the scene cards and you're like, how am I going to get there? And you have to fill in with another scene, right? So that's why it's important to kind of break it down piece by piece. Now, again, if you are a pantser, I'm not going to say that I understand because I really don't personally, but this kind of helps to make sure that you have all the parts. Okay. So one of the things that I do first and foremost when I go and start having a new story idea, and I know that it's one that I'm going to explore and actually expand upon, one thing I do is I start typing a brain dump. Okay. Brain dumps are extremely important when it comes to putting together a story. Okay. And one of the biggest things I think that's important when it comes to separating out those brain dumps versus writing the actual story, how you're writing the brain dumps. Because when you're writing the brain dump, it is for yourself. So you can have random little side notes because it's just for you, because these, I literally make bulleted lists. So just bullet points of things that needs to be included in the story. And oh yeah, I want this to happen. Oh yeah, I want that to happen. Oh, and don't forget, this is going to be tied to this because of this, right? And oh, well, then I need a character who does this. So it's literally just a brain dump of information that I need to keep in mind when I go to plan the story, right? So we want to make sure that all of that kind of information gets out of your head, because that's the most important part. When it's stuck in your head, you can't do much with it, honestly. Because let's think about how many things are rattling around up there. All right, you're trying to figure out what you're having for dinner. You're trying to figure out, are you going to have dinner? Or are you just going to have dessert? Or you're going to try to figure out whether or not we let the dog out recently. What work do we have to do? What homework do we have to do? There's 1,000 different things. Okay, so brain dumping gets that out of your head and you don't have to keep track of it. Now, one of the things that I've learned, and we're going to talk about this later when we talk about codex creation, is that I really do just like printing stuff out on paper and punching holes in it, because I have attempted to do codexes where everything is bound together. This is my first codex. It's very small. Okay, I ended up having to print out other papers, glue them in here. So it's even thicker than it was when I first made it. You can see like how thin it was when it started and how thick it got as we went along. Just because I had to keep adding stuff into it, and having it bound made it really difficult to add stuff to it. And then there was stuff in there that I did not use. So that was really frustrating too. So yeah, that's part of the reason I like using a binder. I can add stuff, I can move stuff around. There's tabs, you can organize it, whatever. So brain dumping. This also allows you, because most of us print on only one side of the page, if you are somewhere with your codex and you need to just hand write it out and brain dump it, you can write on the back of that page. It's the basic things like that. Draw up a family tree. I'm not even kidding. Draw up a family tree for your characters, because otherwise it'd be kind of weird if you said that somebody was a cousin and then in another chapter they're a sibling. Just saying. I also do this with settings. I make pretty much character profiles for settings, and I do that for multiple reasons, because there are small bits of information that are important to that setting that needs to be included. So floor plans for a building, I had like 2 different small stores in one story. One was a coffee shop that had a large like cowbell on the door, and then another was an apothecary that had several small bells on the door. So I had to remember, well, when a customer walked in, is this store going to have it clang, or is there going to be like a little twinkle of, bells? Those bits of information are important. Smells. It is not just a primary male character who has a smell. There, I said it. I said what I said. Okay, do not make only the love interest in a book have a smell. These are bits of information to include on those little side notes when it comes to your plot. We want to know what's going on. Seriously. Now, so the last week of Nano, I'm going to be posting even more resources, writing resources and stuff like that. One of which is specifically going to be the resource that talks about the 57 senses to use in your writing, because there are far more than 5 senses. This is not elementary school, you guys. You can kind of sense how much time has passed. That's a sense, okay? You can sense how close someone is to you looking over your shoulder. It's little things like that. There's just so many types of sensing, and a lot of that information, because it's lacking in so many books, does not allow the reader to like really sink into it. No, I'm not saying to do the Stephen King thing and like tell us about every single texture and every single color that is in a room. But if it is imperative to your story, or if it can enhance that in some way in small amounts, that can really just dramatically change a story. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we are going to take 15 minutes to work on our story. So whether you would like to work specifically on brain dumping, whether you would like to work on a plot embryo, all of that stuff, like if you want a plot embryo or whatever, go to my Patreon page, print one out. They are free, okay? Like all of that stuff is free. Now, I don't know how much you have for paper and ink at your home, but you can download them and utilize them for free over there, okay? So I have my brain dump for the story I am working on. And this is contingent on how a meeting goes tomorrow, because I have a meeting with a potential editing client tomorrow. So I could just be a NaNoWriMo rebel and be editing someone else's manuscript for Nano. I don't know yet. But I'm going to go ahead and run with the story that I have. So if you would like to know what my story is, and this is where it gets like a little crazy, I am taking The Secret Garden, and I'm taking the painter from The Picture of Dorian Gray. I am putting these 2 stories together and writing it similar to the Lady Janie's style. If you've never read the Lady Janie's, they are amazing. I love My Plain Jane. It's one of my favorite books. It is the bastardized ghost version of Jane Eyre, and it is one of the most fun books I have ever read. It is literally right back there. So yes, I am going to be combining these random stories. So what I had to do is figure out what the primary plot was for the story, how it was going to work, because it's similar to The Secret Garden, but I'm putting in dead children. I'm putting in a magic system because of the painter for Dorian Gray. He, was a portrait artist and made it so it captured Dorian's essence, soul, whatever. And Dorian Gray is one of my favorite random stories. So I'm going to utilize that in a book. It'll be fine. And combine these things, which also means that characters are going to be similar to their original characters. However, they're also going to be very different because I have a different kind of story. So we're going to work on that. I can get this program to open. All right, let's see if I can do Scrivener. All right, we're going to open up a Scrivener. This Microsoft Word is not opening. Oh, yeah. So let me know, what program do you guys use? I was asking that on TikTok as well, trying to see what program everybody used to write with. So let me know what program you use to write in. I want to know. Is everyone using the same programs? Are they not? What are we writing with? Okay, I'm gonna get my iPad. It's right here on the table. Don't freak out. I'm not leaving you. I just have to move this stack of books. Okay, I have a lot of books. No shame. Especially since I picked up another one today. It's fine. All right. All right. So, ooh. All right, Rubina, you're trying Dabble this year. Tell me about Dabble, because I've heard about it. And I've heard people say, hey, it works pretty well. And that they like it more than Scrivener. So I'm intrigued. Pardon me, I would like to know how it works and what you like about it and what you don't like about it. And bummer, right now it's Word, but I have downloaded Scrivener and have yet to mess with it. I don't blame you. It was intimidating when I first encountered Scrivener. Scrivener was very intimidating. It's just there's little things to learn, right? Rubina, they are doing a thing where you can link with Nano. Sweet. And you've never used Scrivener. Okay, so yeah, like I don't blame you. There's different kinds of programs and they all have their high points and their low points. And the one thing I like about Scrivener the most is that I can rearrange chapters and sections of writing. And then I can kind of you can even have your codex, you can have electronically on Scrivener as well. So you can pull pictures and they'll have like character profiles as like templates. And so you can utilize that template and go ahead and create your character profiles and setting profiles and stuff on there, which has been kind of cool. Bomber Girl, been busy working in school. Yes, you have. You have a lot of stuff going on there. So, OM goodness. I don't know where my phone is. All right, so I'm going to pull up a timer here. We're going to make a timer. All right. Let's see. Timer. All right. The timer is going to be 15 minutes. Oh, ooh, that is not what I mean. One there. Nope, nope. Oh, make it stop. Make it stop. Okay, 15 minutes on the clock. All right. And let's see. All right, so I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. We are going to write as much as we can in whatever format you want. If you need to brain dump, go ahead and brain dump. If you're going to utilize things like a plot embryo for ideas, you do that too. And here we go. I'm going to leave my mic on because some people like to hear me type. It's fine. Mm-mm. About 8 minutes left. Five minutes. All right, time is up. All right, what did you work on? What were you doing? How did it go? Let's see. Oh, okay. So Bomber was listening to the Bridgerton soundtrack and says that it's awesome for writing. Yes. It's funny because there are tons of different soundtracks that people use, or background sounds and everything that people use when it comes to writing. And I have to say, there's actually there's an app and a website actually called ambientmixer.com. And the app is Ambient Mixer. And you can pick all these different background sounds, and some of them are like the Hogwarts library. And then you can have like the Ravenclaw common room, and it has all the different layers of sound. And then you can actually like turn some of the layers off if you want. So if you don't like the sound of someone stirring their tea with a spoon, you can actually turn off that layer. And so like I think we listened to like the other year for Nano, we listened to Mr. Tumnus's house, right? Like where in the Chronicles of Narnia, in that first book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And you can actually listen to Mr. Tumnus's house, but there was the whistling of a kettle. So we turned that layer off because you would hear it just out of nowhere, the really high-pitched whistle of a tea kettle, which was interesting. Yes, Lord of the Rings, another soundtrack, amazing soundtrack if you just want like something nice and hanging out in the background. Very nice soundtrack. Yeah, my kid was listening to, I think she tried to listen to the soundtrack for Good Omens, and the thing suggested some other background sounds for her, and it came up as what was it? She got Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock show of and so she got Sherlock. She was like, oh my god, I love this soundtrack. Yeah, she's a super goof there. She loved it. Okay, so Rubina knows me in real life and supposedly sent me, oh well, obviously I shouldn't check when I'm in my Funky Like Feathers account. Obviously, she sent me a screenshot of Dabble so I could kind of see what it looked like. Because yeah, like it's something about being able to function differently in some of these programs just makes it, if it just makes sense in your head, it just makes sense in your head, and that's kind of cool. Okay, so yes, it looks like Dabble functions very similarly to Scrivener. Okay, so this I'm assuming is a character profile, right? And you've got it set up nicely. Yes, I love this. I can only zoom in so far, but yes. So very handsome elderly gentleman. And looks like you've got characters. You have, okay, yes, Ruth, Brandon. This is Judge Edwin. I love it. That's very cool. Yeah, so it has this similar kind of setup where it is easy to kind of break down that information so you can see it differently, right? You can kind of, yes, it's very, very cool. I like being able to function differently. So also, it makes it easier too if we are at a, oh, he's a bad guy. Well, he's very handsome. If like we're doing prompts and we have some sprints going on, I'd like to be able to just be able to, that was redundant. I like being able to open up a small project and just say, you can just title it sprint and put the date on it. And then I can just say what the prompt was and then just kind of go with it. It makes it nice and easy to quickly add little things and not have to be an entirely new document. You know what I mean? I like being able to keep things simple there. Where is it? I'm sure there it is. In my product, everyone. Okay. Yeah, so I can literally just say, okay, this is from all of this time in September 2022, and here's what I want to do. And I can list all of my stuff. Here's what also I like about Scrivener. I can sync it with my Dropbox. And that's one of the things about Google Docs that makes it easy to use, is that then you can access it from anywhere, right? So because everything is just anywhere that you can access your email. You can get onto your Google Docs. So that's super handy for a lot of people. And then it's easy to share with people as well. So if you need to like send it to your editor, then it's very simple to do. Oh, goodness. Okay, so Rubina says that she has used Word this entire time and she has lost parts during sprints. That's bad. That's very bad. And actually, somebody mentioned the other day that they, on the live stream on Sunday, they mentioned that they had stuff saved on Scrivener and a hard drive, and both of those versions were lost. So that's part of the reason I use Dropbox, is that it is an offsite. It's not a hard drive, so it's not like something I can take out of my computer and stick in the freezer if I need to try to salvage something on it. Oh, my words. Okay, so Dabble is web-based, so you can log in. Great. Lost as in forgot where it went? How do you forget where it went? Oh, my words. So, the way that my Scrivener is set up is that I've got it on my iPad here. So things are listed over here, but there's also big chunks over here. So they're listed kind of twice. So you just how do you want to access that? And then when you pick that project, you can just say, okay, so like Witch's Ring. So when I click on Witch's Ring, that project opens and all my chapters are listed over here. And I can just go from one to the other and see it just changes. So I can go and work on this every once, and then I can like drag and drop it, right? You couldn't remember which sprint it was. Okay, so this is part of the reason that I say sprint. And then when I open that document, I actually put at the top of like my writing what the prompt was, so that it kind of jogs that memory, because otherwise you have to read through the whole thing. And that does not work well. And then I also have them separated out based on what year I did them. So I have like NaNoWriMo 2021. So that's that kind of stuff. Yeah. Gotta have that organization there for it, just to make it easier to find, right? Finding it is half the battle. Like I just said, like I didn't even know where I put Scrivener on my iPad. It's because I put it in with all the other Word programs, Word programs, Microsoft programs. So everything was there under productivity. I don't even know why. I think the way this is organized will help. Yeah, like organizing the information, like I said, is half the battle. Just try to keep track of where all your stuff is. So this evening, we talked specifically about kind of planning the big picture of the story. Okay, now here's the thing. If you don't plan the big picture of the story, it's very easy to have massive plot holes. Okay, and that's the hard part, because yes, I have dealt with numerous manuscripts over the years, because one of the things to think about is, yes, I am a freelance editor. So one of the things that I do when I look through is I try to make sure that the story flows properly, that things function correctly. And sometimes there are massive gaping holes in the plot because things were not planned out in big picture. And this especially can happen if you have a series and then you have pieces of information missing in that section, right? So we want to make sure that it is as complete as possible, right? It makes it a lot easier for your reader to see what's going on in the story. One of those, like I said, biggest things to keep in mind is you don't have to write your story right now, because I was speaking to somebody this past weekend at the workshop about story structure, and she specifically mentioned that, you know, she has a really difficult time rewriting a scene. So once she writes it, she's kind of like, all right, I'm done, like I can't rewrite this. And I get it. It is very difficult to rewrite a scene. So that's why I like doing brain dumps, or pardon me, kind of speaking to myself as I'm writing the outline for it, because I'm telling myself what needs to be in it. Now, if you don't know who Abby Emmons is a writer who does a series on YouTube called Writer's Life Wednesdays. She's been doing this for years, and she talks about different topics, and her outlines for her books, she wrote 100 Days of Sunlight. Her outlines are about 60,000 words. I'm just going to let that sink in for a minute. Her outlines are 60,000 words. So when I say that you are telling yourself the story, I mean like you are literally just telling yourself like, here's what needs to be here. Here's what I think needs to happen. Oh yeah, here's something else. And oh, don't forget this guy. And by the way, I need to figure this out. Yeah, it's kind of like having a book for her book. Okay, but the tone, what is involved, how it's written is going to be completely different. So here's an example, okay? Because I typed up my brain dump for my book was 888 words, okay? And that was 3 pages because I printed it in larger font. But some of the stuff that I wrote, again, it's bullet points. So it's just telling myself what needs to happen. So I've got, all right, the paintings in the house of small children will actually be children that Archibald has killed over the years. His evil ways have creating the giant hump on his back over the years. He's a young child who killed his mother during childbirth. I'm telling myself, oh, this needs to happen. Oh, this needs to happen. All is well in Mary and Harrison Manor. Mrs. Metlock stays on staff because she no longer has to die from seeing too many years pass with the Cravens aging. Or maybe they had their memories wiped for previous years. That would work so that she could stay on staff for long periods of time. Like, yep, let's go with that one. like that's literally what it says. Okay, because that's what I typed. All right, that's what we want to see on a brain dump. It's literally stream of consciousness and telling yourself, oh, hey, let's do this. All right. Then when you start to break it down, even when it comes to those major plot points that we do on like the beat sheet and everything, those are just major plot points. You don't have to say, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And then you don't have to have a simple string of ideas when it comes to those plot points. You need very basic ideas of what's supposed to happen. And then you're going to start breaking it down into scenes. Okay, so when I say that these workshops we have on the weekends with Write It with Writers, we organize these workshops over the weekends to be in a specific order, right? So the first weekend, we had Rachel specifically talking about the creating characters, right? And that's what I talked about last weekend. This past weekend, I talked about story structure. So like the art of storytelling. So the big pictures, right? And then that's what we're talking about today. This weekend, Maria will talk specifically about scene cards. That's what I'll be discussing next Wednesday. Then we're going to sit down and talk about codex creation. So how you bring all of this together to kind of really work so that you have something tangible to walk around with and it's outside of your head, right? Then the last weekend, I'm going to be discussing writing resources with you guys and the purposes and good ones to utilize and why they're good and how they function and bringing all that stuff together so that when we hit NaNoWriMo, you guys will just be ready to go. You'll have all your stuff ready, all right? So the things that we're discussing on the weekends, we put into practice on these Wednesdays. Now, this weekend in particular, I actually have a writing workshop at 1 o'clock. If you are local to the Spring Woodlands area in Texas, there is a bookshop called Buy the Book, B-U-Y, Buy the Book. And I'm doing a writing workshop at 1 o'clock. So it is a 2-hour workshop. For 2 hours, we will be sitting there getting words on paper. So we're going to be working on either projects you have in process right now, or I also have a ton of prompts. It is for writers of all ages and all levels. And I mean that in the most literal way. Okay. It does not matter if somebody is 10 years old. It does not matter if they are 95 years old. I do not care. It does not matter if you have just decided to pick up a pencil last week, or if you are a very seasoned writer. That's what these kinds of workshops are for. It's to help you grow as a writer, to help you push yourself, and to do it with people who understand the struggle and who understand what it is to try to write and get these ideas out of your head. Okay, that's why we have these workshops set up. And to make sure that as writers, you come out of your hidey hole and meet other writers. Okay, Hank, I cannot take you for a walk right now. I'm going to have to wait for just a little bit. So that's why we do these kinds of things. You really do have to put in that kind of extra effort because it is difficult to make sure that we get all this stuff done. Okay. It's not easy. Writing is difficult, especially writing well. Like I will be the first to tell you. It is difficult. Okay. And that's also why we have multiple rounds of editing that happens. If you cannot see what is here, it is my dog, George. Don't worry. My hand's not just going down nowhere. So yes, or stalk your favorite YouTube personality. Absolutely. Because now here's the thing again. So I actually have a video coming out on Friday about my top 10 tips on how to win NaNoWriMo. And there's a lot of simple stuff in there that seems simple, but is really important. So a lot of that's going to be listed out there. So look out for that video this Friday because we are going to be talking specifically about how to win your NaNoWriMo because I know it's not easy and we're adding stuff on top of everything. But make sure that you are checking your regional pages on the NaNoWriMo website, or if your region has a local page on Facebook or Discord or Twitter or TikTok, whatever it is, because there's 1,000 different outlets. If you know somebody who has a Twitch and they're sitting there writing, or you just want to hang out with people on live streams while they're doing it, there are tons of things going on in November. This is an international thing, which also means there are people in different time zones. I have a friend in the UK, and so she is 6 hours ahead of where I am. So it is like 1 o'clock in the morning for her right now. So look out for that. There are tons of things going on. There are tons of writers doing this. We all have videos from over the years on what we have learned over the time. This will be my 5th year of NaNoWriMo. 5th year. I have been in ML for 4 of those. It's my 4th year as an ML for Nano. It is not easy because we have to do everything for the ML position on top of we are required to participate. So we are required to write and at least attempt winning as well. So there's a lot of stuff that we've learned over the time. So if you have questions, reach out to your MLs. That's why we're here. Okay. If you don't know what ML stands for, it stands for Municipal Liaison. We are kind of your tour guide on this whole NaNoWriMo adventure. So we try to make sure that you have everything that you need. We try to answer any questions that you may have. And seriously, if you have questions along the way, please reach out to your MLs because that's why we're here. We've all done this before and we're here to help you. So yes, usually there's a team of MLs. There's usually kind of a small batch of people. That's not the case in my region. So that is also why I kind of try to plan as far in advance as possible and make sure that you guys have as many opportunities to write as I can provide for you. Okay, so this coming month in November, I'm actually going to be live on YouTube on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we're going to keep going with that weekly meetup on Wednesdays. I am going to start at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays, specifically because that last Wednesday, I have my online book club meeting. So if you did not know, I do a Book Nerd University. I am the president of Book Nerd University, which you can sign up for over on my Patreon as well. Enrollment for that is $10 a month. And this month we are reading Small Town Big Magic. The book is in my bag, so I cannot hold it up for you. But it's kind of a cozy contemporary magic book. It is a lot of fun. And if you are local, that Buy the Book store, they do actually sell it for 10% off if you are enrolled in Book Nerd University. So, and I have stickers that are in all of the copies. So I do give out stickers with those as well. If you are a writer and are looking for additional help with your writing, I also have a Writers Who Lunch package on my Patreon. That's also only $10 a month. So if you want one-on-one feedback on your projects, I will actually sit there on a Zoom call with just you every single month, and I will read over your work and I will edit it with you sitting there and give you active feedback as I work through your selection. So that's also something that I have available for you guys because I know that editing services are not easy emotionally or financially to jump into. So having some one-on-one feedback like that can be a big help. And then that's also, though, why we have all of these workshops set up. So at the first Saturday of every month, even during Nano, the first Saturday of the month, I will still be doing the critique club by the book. That's a 2-hour session where you show up, bring some printouts of your work. And again, I will be there right there with you, and whoever's there, we will all give you critique and feedback so that your work can be as good as possible, right? Because I know you guys work really hard on these projects. I know you're putting your, heart, love, and soul down there on that paper. I know it's difficult to hand over your baby to people to kind of tear apart and tell you stuff that's wrong with it. I know that's difficult, but that's why we're here. And that's how we make things better. Okay. So those are things to consider. I'm not here to just sell you on the fact that I can be your editor full time. I know that it's not easy. But that's why I have some smaller things set up for you guys. Okay. So other than that, keep writing, keep planning, keep going. All right. You're not done yet because we do have a couple of weeks left before Nano officially starts. Try to see if your region does goodie bags, because if they do, make sure that you get one. There is NaNoWriMo stickers in there. This year, the theme, I don't even know if I can call it a theme. What's on your sticker is flowers. I don't know why. Everything is kind of orange and purple. If that explains it enough. It'll be on the thumbnail of the video that I release on Friday. You will see the NaNoWriMo sticker. I don't know why that's the theme, because it's like springtime flowers. I don't know, but that's where they're at this year. So those kinds of stickers come in your goodie bags. I've got a bunch of stuff that's going to be in those goodie bags as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you have those regions, make sure that you reach out to your MLC if they have some goodie bags for you guys, because it's just something nice and cool to have every single year. And you can collect the stickers, right? Because I'm sorry, there's something about stickers that just makes me motivated. Okay. It's the little things in life. So keep writing, you guys, keep planning, plotting, go ahead and start putting all of your ideas, just get them out of your head, whether you have to type it or handwrite it or draw yourself diagrams or Venn diagrams or fun little flow charts. I don't care. Start getting stuff out of your head, because it'll make the writing process a lot easier. Okay. And those scenes that you're very excited to write, wait until Nano. Write the little notes to yourself so that you know what to include in it, but wait until Nano. And remember, you don't have to start with chapter 1, page 1. You probably shouldn't, actually. Let me just put that out there. Don't start writing the starting of the story. Wait, okay, because you're going to freak out about chapter 1, page 1, and you're going to sit there and overthink it and push the delete button, which you should not be doing during NaNoWriMo. Do not push that delete button, okay? Unless you were just like correcting a spelling or something, do not delete stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that. But your story can very easily come together like a beautiful quilt. Okay, so write the scenes as you are motivated to write them. And remember, if you have those scene cards, it'll help you make it a more seamless transition from one scene to another, because each scene will have a purpose. You'll have something that leads to that scene. You'll have that scene leading to another scene. It just makes it beautiful. Okay. Then sit on your project for a little while. Come to me next year after you have done a reread of your project, and then go, okay, I'm ready to have this read. So there's work to be done before you go passing me your project. I have gotten random projects that were not at all finished and I had to send them back. So it's very difficult, right? Because I know that it's hard to hand things over. There is a lot of pressure about things. And remember, you don't ever have to publish these. Let's discuss that. You never actually have to publish a book. You can write a book just because you wanted to write it. You can write a book just because you wanted to read it. Okay, that's part of the reason I'm writing this story this year. I think this would be a fun story to read, so I'm writing it. Okay, those are things to keep in mind. You are not required to publish your story. Okay, you can fix it up as much as you want for you, and that's important. All right, but if you're going to have someone read your story, you also need to make sure that they're going to be honest with you. Please do not have just, your mom, or a best friend read your manuscript and then just hand it back to you and be like, yeah, this is great. That's not how editing works, you guys. That's not how feedback works. I wish it was, but it's not. If somebody has not written all over it and given you absolute detailed feedback of what needs to go into this, it's it's not ready. You should have your stuff pretty much by the time it comes back, because that'll make it better, and that means that somebody was really reading it with the intention to make it better. And yes, we try to be gentle with everyone's emotional state and the fact that this is your baby, but yeah, find yourself a good editor. It's the most I can say. I've literally torn chapters to pieces, and there's markings all over, and I hand it back, and I'm like, "That was great." And they're like, what? And but yeah, talking to people about their work, they realize it is really good work. It's just all these little things that need to get kind of tweaked a little bit. And remember that if you are reaching out to an editor, most of us are willing to do sample chapters for you, or at least sample sections. So we'll tell you kind of how many words you can send it to us, and we will edit that chunk of words. So we'll do pretty much a one-time consultation. Then that way you can also see what our feedback is like. Okay, that's important too. You can see what our editing looks like, so you can decide whether or not that's a good fit for you. All of us have our own methods. So, shop around, okay? Like there's no reason to just be like one and done. Like shop around, it's fine. So again, I digress. I go on side tangents, but that's available on Patreon too. I've got different kinds of levels there. You can be there just for all the back information, because every single week I post at least once to Patreon. So there's tons of behind the scenes stuff that you get over there. If you just want to be a happy helping patron, there is a tier if you want to be a part of the online book club. And then there's also a tier if you want to get that writing feedback like we talked about. So enjoy all of the free downloads right now. I have a ton of stuff on there. If you want like even more insanity, you can actually follow my Pinterest board for writing. So I have a bunch of writing like a whole lot of writing resources on my writing board on Pinterest. And yes, I am funky like feathers over there as well. So kind of across the board. I am on TikTok. I recently started a TikTok. That's been an adventure. I'm also on Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I don't use it. And yeah, and I'm over on Facebook as well. So have fun, you guys, with all of this prep work. Remember, we are almost halfway through Preptober. Okay, so you still have plenty of time, but go ahead and start making sure that like you have small goals along the way to kind of set you up. We will be continuing to meet here every single Wednesday. In November, I will also be here on Monday nights. Monday nights, I will be here at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Wednesdays, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Tuesdays, I'm meeting at a local bookstore. Thursdays, I'm meeting in the morning at a local location. Pardon me. And then Fridays, we are meeting at a local IHOP. So tons of stuff going on. I don't have a lot of weekend meetups in November because I still have that first and third weekend where I'm doing Critique Club and the writing workshop at the local bookstore. So lots of stuff going on, you guys. Go ahead and set up your calendars and your planners, set up all of your reminders that you need, and we will be here for you guys. Okay, so I will see y'all either this weekend at the writing workshop, or I will see you next week on Wednesday right here to work on some more stuff. And next time we're going to be talking about singing cards. All right, so have a great evening, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, you guys.